I never thought the day would come when my own son would look me in the eyes and say he doesn't believe I ever loved him. But that day came. And when it did, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there in silence, watching the only person I ever truly lived for walk away from me. My name is Margaret. I'm 62 years old now. And this is the story of how I lost my son without ever doing anything wrong. Or at least that's what I believed for the longest time. You see, love isn't always loud. It doesn't always come with grand gestures or sweet words whispered every night. Sometimes love is quiet. Sometimes it's in the meals you cook, the clothes you wash, the bills you pay without ever mentioning how hard it was. That was my kind of love. And I thought that was enough. But somewhere along the way, someone convinced my son that silence meant I didn't care. That my quiet strength was actually cold distance. And by the time I realized what was happening, it was already too late. This is not a story about hatred. It's not about villains or heroes. It's just a story about a mother who loved her son the only way she knew how. And a son who for many years believed that wasn't love at all. Let me take you back to the beginning. Back when things were simple. Back when it was just the two of us. I raised my son Daniel on my own. His father left when Daniel was only 3 years old. I remember that day clearly. It was raining. The kind of rain that sounds angry against the windows. He packed one bag. Didn't say much. Just told me he couldn't do this anymore. And then he was gone. I didn't have time to fall apart. I had a little boy who needed me. So I got up the next morning, made breakfast, and kept going. That's what mothers do. We keep going. I worked 2 jobs for most of Daniel's childhood. I was a cleaner at the local hospital during the day. At night I worked at a bakery. I didn't mind the work. It kept food on the table and a roof over our heads. Daniel never went without the basics. Maybe we didn't have much, but we had enough. I wasn't the kind of mother who sat and played games for hours. I wasn't the one reading bedtime stories every night or throwing birthday parties with balloons and cake. I wish I could have been. But I was tired. So tired. By the time I got home most nights, I could barely keep my eyes open. Still, I made sure Daniel had clean clothes. I made sure he ate proper meals. I helped him with his homework when I could. I went to his school meetings. I showed up. Maybe not in the way other mothers did, but I was there. Daniel was a quiet child. He didn't ask for much. He did well in school. He had a few friends but mostly kept to himself. I thought that was just his personality. I thought he was fine. Looking back now, I wonder if I missed something. If he was waiting for me to say something I never said. Waiting for a hug I never gave. Waiting for words I thought didn't need to be spoken. But back then I thought love was something you showed, not something you said. I thought he knew. Daniel grew up to be a smart, hard-working young man. He went to university on a scholarship. I was so proud of him. I remember the day he got the acceptance letter. He came running into the kitchen, waving the paper in the air. "Mom, I got in," he said. I smiled. I hugged him. I said, "Good. You deserve it." That was it. I didn't cry tears of joy. I didn't tell him how proud I was in a long speech. I just said he deserved it. Because he did. And I thought that was enough. He studied business. He did well. He graduated with honors. I went to his graduation. I sat in the back row. I watched him walk across that stage. And I felt my heart swell with something I didn't have words for. Pride. Relief. Love. After graduation, Daniel got a job at a marketing firm in the city. It was a good job. He moved into a small apartment. I helped him move his things. I cleaned the place before he settled in. I made sure he had everything he needed. We didn't talk much after that. He was busy. I understood. I didn't want to be the kind of mother who called every day and asked 100 questions. So I gave him space. I thought that was what he needed. Once a month he would visit. We'd have dinner. I'd cook his favorite meal. We'd talk about work, about life. Nothing too deep. Just surface things. And then he'd leave. And I'd clean up. And I'd think to myself, he's doing well. That's all that matters. Then about 5 years ago Daniel met her. Her name was Rebecca. He told me about her during one of our monthly dinners. He seemed happy, excited. He said she worked in the same firm, that they'd been dating for a few months, that he really liked her. I said, "That's nice, Daniel. I'm happy for you." And I wanted him to be happy. I wanted him to have someone, to not be alone the way I had been. A few months later, he brought her to meet me. She was polite, well-dressed. She smiled a lot. She asked me questions about myself, about Daniel's childhood. I answered simply, "I'm not good at long conversations with strangers. I never have been." I made dinner for them. I set the table nicely. I did my best. Rebecca thanked me. She said the food was lovely, but there was something in her eyes I couldn't quite read. Something like evaluation, like she was studying me, measuring me. After they left, I felt uneasy, but I pushed it aside. I told myself I was being silly, that I was just not used to sharing my son with someone else. A year later, they got married. It was a small wedding, mostly her family and friends, a few of Daniel's colleagues. I sat in the front row. I wore my best dress. I watched my son say his vows, and I felt a strange mix of happiness and loneliness. After the wedding, things started to change. Slowly at first. So slowly I didn't even notice. Daniel's monthly visits became less frequent. Every 2 months. Then every 3. Then only on holidays. When he did visit, Rebecca was always with him. And the conversations felt different. Shorter. More polite. Less comfortable. I tried not to think too much about it. I told myself this was normal. That married men have their own lives. That I needed to give them space. But deep down something felt wrong. The first real sign came about a year after their wedding. It was Daniel's birthday. I had always made him a cake on his birthday. Every single year. Chocolate cake with vanilla frosting. His favorite. That year I baked the cake like always. I called him to ask if he wanted to come over for dinner. He said they already had plans with Rebecca's family, but he'd stop by later in the evening to pick up the cake. I said, "Of course. I'll wait for you." I waited. 8 o'clock came. Then 9. Then 10. I called him. No answer. I sent a message. No reply. At 11 I finally got a text. It said, "Sorry, Mom. It got late. We'll come by tomorrow." Tomorrow came. No one showed up. No call. No message. I kept the cake on the counter for 3 days. It just sat there untouched. Eventually I threw it away. I told myself it was okay. They were busy. Life happens. But it hurt. More than I wanted to admit. A few months later it was Christmas. I invited them over for dinner. I spent the whole day cooking. I made all of Daniel's favorite dishes. I cleaned the house. I set the table. I even put up a small tree. They arrived late. Rebecca looked tired. Daniel looked distracted. We sat down to eat. I tried to make conversation. I asked about work, about their plans for the new year. Rebecca answered most of the questions. Daniel just nodded. At one point, I asked Daniel if he remembered the Christmas when he was 10, when we couldn't afford a tree, so we made one out of paper and hung it on the wall. He smiled a little. "Yeah, I remember." Rebecca looked at him, then at me. She said, "That must have been hard for you, Daniel, not having a proper Christmas." There was something in the way she said it. Something sharp, like she was making a point. Daniel didn't say anything. He just looked down at his plate. I said, "We did our best with what we had." Rebecca smiled. But it wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Of course," she said. "I'm sure you did." After dinner they left quickly. Rebecca said she wasn't feeling well. Daniel hugged me at the door. But it felt stiff, distant. I watched them drive away. And I stood there for a long time, wondering what I had done wrong. Over the next few months I started noticing more things. Small things. But they added up. When I called Daniel, Rebecca often answered. She would say he was busy, that he'd call me back. But he rarely did. When I sent messages, the replies were short. 1 or 2 words. Sometimes just an emoji. When I suggested visiting, there was always a reason why it wasn't a good time. They were traveling. They were redecorating. They had guests. I started to feel like I was bothering them, like I was an inconvenience. So I stopped calling as much. I stopped suggesting visits. I waited for them to reach out to me, but they didn't. Weeks would go by, then months, and I would hear nothing. I told myself this was normal, that adult children have their own lives, that I shouldn't be needy or demanding. But late at night, alone in my house, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt invisible. Then one day, I ran into Daniel at the grocery store. He was alone. I was so happy to see him. "Daniel," I said, smiling. He looked surprised, almost uncomfortable. "Hi, Mom," he said. We stood there in the aisle, surrounded by strangers and shopping carts. Felt strange, like we were two people who didn't know what to say to each other. I asked him how he was. He said fine. I asked about work. He said it was going well. I asked about Rebecca. He said she was good. Then there was silence, long and awkward. Finally I said, "You should come over for dinner sometime. I miss you." He looked at me, and for a moment I thought I saw something in his eyes. Something soft, something like the boy I used to know. But then he looked away. He said, "Yeah, maybe. I'll check with Rebecca." And that was it. He said he had to go. He walked away. I stood there holding my shopping basket, watching him leave. That night I cried. I hadn't cried in years. But that night I did. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because Tuesdays were my day off. I was at home cleaning the kitchen when my phone rang. It was Daniel. I was so surprised. He hadn't called me in months. "Hi, sweetheart," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom," he said. His voice was cold, flat. "Yes. I need to talk to you." My heart sank. Something was wrong. I could hear it in his tone. "Of course. What is it?" There was a pause. Then he said, "Rebecca and I have been talking, and we think it's best if we take some space. From you." I didn't understand. "Space? What do you mean?" "I mean, we need time. Away from you. We think it's better for us right now." I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. "Daniel, I don't understand. What did I do?" "It's not about what you did, Mom. It's about everything. It's about how things have always been." "What do you mean, how things have always been?" He sighed. A long, tired sigh. "Mom, I don't want to get into this right now. I need you to respect our decision." "But Daniel, please, Mom, just give us space." And then he hung up. I stood there, phone in my hand, staring at nothing. I replayed the conversation in my head over and over, trying to understand, trying to find the moment where I lost him. But I couldn't. Days passed, then weeks. I didn't hear from him. I didn't call. I didn't know what to say. I felt like I was drowning, like I was underwater and couldn't find the surface. I went through my days in a fog. I went to work. I came home. I cooked meals I didn't eat. I sat in the living room and stared at the walls. At night, I would lie in bed and think about all the moments I could have done things differently. All the times I could have said, "I love you," instead of just making dinner. All the times I could have hugged him longer, talked to him more, been more. But I didn't know. I didn't know he needed those things. I thought I was doing enough. One evening, about 2 months after that phone call, I got a message. It was from Rebecca. It said, "Margaret, I think it's time we had an honest conversation. Can we meet for coffee tomorrow?" I didn't want to, but I needed to understand. I needed to know what had happened, what I had done to lose my son. So I said yes. We met at a small cafe downtown. Rebecca was already there when I arrived. She looked calm, composed. She smiled at me as I sat down. "Thank you for coming," she said. I nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak yet. She ordered us both coffee. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she started talking. "Margaret, I want to be honest with you. I think you deserve that." I waited. "Daniel loves you." "He does. But he's hurt. He's been hurt for a long time." Hurt? By what? By me. She nodded slowly. Yes. I felt my chest tighten. What did I do? She took a sip of her coffee. She looked at me with something like pity. It's not one thing, Margaret. It's everything. It's the way you were when he was growing up. The way you never really showed him affection. The way you never told him you loved him. The way you were always so distant. I shook my head. I wasn't distant. I was working. I was doing everything I could to keep us afloat. I know, she said softly. But Daniel didn't see it that way. He saw a mother who was never really there. Who never hugged him. Who never told him he mattered. Tears filled my eyes. I tried to blink them away. But I did tell him. In my own way. I showed him. Rebecca looked at me. And there was something in her eyes. Something I couldn't quite place. Margaret, I don't think you understand. Children need more than food and clean clothes. They need to be told they're loved. They need to feel it. And Daniel. He never felt it. I sat there stunned. Broken. She continued. When we first started dating, he told me about his childhood. About how lonely he felt. About how he always wondered if you even wanted him. If you even cared. Of course I cared, I whispered. He was my whole world. But did you ever tell him that? I opened my mouth, but no words came out, because the answer was no. I never did. Rebecca leaned forward. Her voice was soft, almost kind. I'm not saying this to hurt you, Margaret. I'm saying this because I think you need to understand. Daniel has spent his whole life feeling like he wasn't enough for you, like he didn't matter. And now he's trying to heal from that. And part of that healing is creating distance. But I love him, I said, my voice breaking. I've always loved him. I believe you, she said. But love isn't just something you feel. Something you show. Something you say. And you never did that. I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They spilled down my cheeks. I didn't care that we were in a public place. I didn't care that strangers were watching. Rebecca reached across the table and touched my hand. It was a gentle touch, but it felt like a knife. I think it's best if you give him space, she said. Maybe one day he'll be ready to talk to you. But right now, he needs time. I pulled my hand away. I stood up. I couldn't sit there anymore. I couldn't listen to anymore. Thank you for your honesty, I said quietly. And then I left. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. Darker even than when Daniel's father left. Because this time I had no one to get up for. No reason to keep going. I stopped going to work. Called in sick. I couldn't face people. Couldn't pretend everything was fine. I spent my days in bed. Staring at the ceiling. Replaying my entire life in my head. Every moment with Daniel. Every decision I made. Every word I didn't say. And I realized something. Something that broke me even more. Rebecca was right. I had never told Daniel I loved him. Not in words. I thought it was obvious. I thought he knew. But he didn't. I had been so focused on surviving. On working. On providing. That I forgot to actually be a mother in the way he needed. I thought love was in the actions. In the sacrifices. But I never realized that sometimes people need to hear the words. They need to feel the warmth. They need to know without a doubt that they matter. And I had failed him. I don't know how long I stayed in that dark place. Days. Weeks. Maybe longer. But then one morning, I woke up and felt something different. Not hope. Not happiness. But clarity. I realized that wallowing in guilt wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't bring Daniel back. It wouldn't undo the past. But maybe, just maybe, I could try to make things right. Even if he never forgave me. Even if he never spoke to me again. Could try. I sat down and wrote him a letter. A real letter. On paper. In my own handwriting. I poured everything into that letter. All the love I never said. All the regret I felt. All the pride I had in him. All the fear I carried as a single mother. All the exhaustion. All the loneliness. From the moment I held him in my arms and promised to protect him. That love never wavered. Never faded. Even now, I told him I understood if he needed space, if he never wanted to see me again, that I would respect his choice, but that I would always be here, always waiting, always loving him. I signed the letter. I put it in an envelope. I addressed it, and I sent it. Weeks went by. No response. I didn't expect one, but I had hoped. I tried to move forward. I went back to work. I started seeing a counselor, someone to talk to, someone to help me process everything. It helped. Slowly, little by little. I learned that I couldn't change the past, but I could learn from it. I could be better. Even if Daniel never came back, I could still grow, still heal. Then, about 4 months after I sent the letter, my phone rang. It was Daniel. My hands shook as I answered. "Hello, Mom." His voice. I hadn't heard it in so long. "Daniel," I whispered. There was a long silence. I could hear him breathing. "I got your letter," he said finally. "Okay." I read it. A few times. I waited. My heart was pounding. I don't know if I'm ready to have you back in my life the way things were. But I think I'd like to try. Slowly. Maybe we could meet and talk. Tears streamed down my face. But this time they weren't tears of sadness. "I'd like that," I said. "Whenever you're ready. I'll be here." "Okay," he said softly. "Okay." We met a week later. At a park. Neutral ground. He looked older. Tired. But he was there. We sat on a bench. We didn't say much at first. We just sat. Then slowly we started talking. Really talking. For the first time in maybe his entire life. I told him everything. About how scared I was when his father left. About how hard it was to work 2 jobs and still feel like I was failing. About how I didn't know how to be soft when life demanded I be strong. He listened. And then he talked too. He told me about how lonely he felt as a child. About how he used to watch other kids with their parents and wonder why I didn't hug him like that. Didn't smile at him like that. He told me about the nights he cried himself to sleep, thinking I didn't love him. It broke my heart. But I listened. I didn't defend myself. I didn't make excuses. I just listened. And then I said the words I should have said 1,000 times before. "I love you, Daniel. I have always loved you. And I'm so sorry I never made sure you knew that." He looked at me. And his eyes filled with tears. "I love you too, Mom," he said. And we sat there, 2 broken people trying to find our way back to each other. It wasn't a happy ending. Not in the fairy tale sense. Things didn't go back to normal. Because there was no normal to go back to. But it was a beginning. A new beginning. We started meeting once a month. Just the 2 of us. We talked. We shared. We slowly, carefully rebuilt something that had been broken for so long. Rebecca was there too. And I came to understand her role in all of this. She wasn't the villain I had made her out to be. She was someone who loved my son. Who wanted him to heal. Who pushed him to confront the pain he had been carrying. In a way, she saved him. And in doing so, she saved us. It's been 2 years since that conversation in the park. Daniel and I are still rebuilding. Still learning. Still trying. Some days are easy. Some days are hard. But we show up. We keep trying. I've learned that love is more than sacrifice. It's more than providing. It's in the words you say. The hugs you give. The time you spend. The presents you offer. I've learned that children need to hear, "I love you." They need to feel valued. Seen. Cherished. Not just fed and clothed. I've learned that good intentions don't always translate. That you can do your best and still fall short. And that's okay. As long as you're willing to learn. To grow. To try again. If you're a parent reading this, I want you to know something. Tell your children you love them. Every day. Even if it feels awkward. Even if you think they already know. Say it anyway. Hug them. Spend time with them. Not just in the same room, but really with them. Listen to them. See them. Because one day they'll be grown. And they'll look back. And they'll either remember feeling loved. Or they'll remember wondering if they were. And that difference changes everything. As for me, I'm still here. Still learning. Still trying to be the mother Daniel needed all along. It's not perfect, but it's real. And it's ours. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.